Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining and welcome to my presentation. My name is Marley Glavich, and today we'll look at how the emerging science can help us reimagine EMDR, not just as a mental health tool, but as a way to support systemic regulation and whole person recovery. I'd like to invite you to explore an idea that's both simple and far fetching. Trauma doesn't just affect the mind, it also impacts the immune system. When we bring insights from psychoneuroimmunology into EMDR, we open the door to healing that supports both the body and the mind. So let's explore how integrating these perspectives can move us towards care that's not only effective, but also more compassionate and equitable for individuals and for communities. So, why does this matter? Trauma, as we now have witnessed through all of the research that's been published, it doesn't just live in the body, but it also lives in the mind. Research has shown that chronic trauma dysregulates the HPA axis and immune system that triggers persistent inflammation and elevates the risk for serious conditions like autoimmune diseases and cardiovascular problems. Despite these well established biological effects, EMDR research has largely focused on emotional symptom relief. It's rare that we see immune biomarkers or autonomic indicators included in studies. This creates a gap between what we know about trauma's full impact and how we treat it. To improve outcomes, we must expand EMDR beyond symptom reduction and begin address trauma's physiological footprint. So, psychoneuroimmunology shows us that trauma doesn't just affect mental health, it disrupts the immune system and the body's stress response. This field has given us a framework to understand how trauma drives immune dysregulation. For example, after trauma, we often see elevated levels of pro inflammatory cytokines like IL-6 and TNF-A, reductions in regulatory T cells, and blunted cortisol rhythms. These aren't just side effects, they actually help sustain the experiences of psychological distress. In other words, there's a biological feedback loop at play. Trauma triggers inflammation and dysregulates the stress response, which in turn reinforces emotional pain. So, this is where EMDR becomes especially interesting. So, what we already know is that EMDR is effective at reducing psychological symptoms, but emerging research suggests it may also help regulate the body's physiology, improving vagal tone and heart rate variability, which are both markers of parasympathetic activation and autonomic balance. Bilateral stimulation in EMDR may be doing more than helping clients process memories. Researchers now are thinking that it may also be calming the nervous system by allowing the body to shift out of the chronic stress state that it may be in from the trauma. So that means EMDR might not just be treating the mind, it could also be engaging in the very systems that trauma disrupts: the HPA axis, the autonomic nervous system, and the immune signaling pathways. So imagine a model of trauma therapy that doesn't just stop at emotional relief, but supports the true systemic recovery where the brain, the body, and the immune system are all parts of the healing process. Therefore, by bridging psychoneuroimmunology into the conversation, we can reimagine EMDR as a mind body therapy, one that treats trauma at every level. So the figure that I'd created here, just to point your attention a little bit more, it just demonstrates when a traumatic event or chronic stress does occur, kind of what happens in in the body. So for example, you see the HPA axis dysregulation, which causes increased CRH, increased ACTH, increase or decrease cortisol, which then further affects the autonomic imbalance. So it increases the sympathetic activation, or it decreases parasympathetic, so the vagal tone. This further then impacts the immune dysregulation. So we're seeing increased pro-inflammatory cytokines, we're seeing increased monocytes, we're seeing decreased regulatory T cells, and even decreased immune homeostasis. This then further impacts the brain and the body. For the brain specifically, it impacts the amygdala, where it hyperactivates the medial prefrontal cortex and the hippocampal dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation as well as hypervigilance is seen from these effects. In terms of the body, we see chronic inflammation, cardiovascular issues, autoimmune conditions, fatigue, pain, and even mood disorders, among others. So, emerging studies are showing us that EMDR may do more than just help process emotions. It might also regulate the body's stress response. We're seeing increases in heart rate variability and respiratory sinus arrhythmia, which are both signs of stronger parasympathetic tone. That's basically the body shifting out of the fight or flight and into a more regulated, restful state. EMDR has also been linked to lower cortisol levels, which tells us that the HPA axis, which is considered the body's central stress system, is coming back into balance. This is important because when cortisol is chronically dysregulated, it keeps inflammation high and makes it harder for the body to heal. So, again, this is reflecting back to the figure from the slide before. So, here's how it all fit together. HRV tells us how well the nervous system is shifting between a stress state and a calmful state. The higher the HRV means that the body is more resilient and better regulated. Cortisol is our main stress hormone, and in trauma survivors, it's been demonstrated that the rhythm often gets thrown off where it's either too high or too low. Vagal tone reflects how active the vagus nerve is, and when it's strong, it actually helps turn down inflammation and stabilize mood and physiology. So that's the exciting part about EMDR, as that it seems to influence all of these systems. It increases HRV, it boasts vagal tone, and it helps bring cortisol back into rhythm. That creates kind of a healing loop. The nervous system calms down, inflammation reduces, and the body gets a real chance to recover. Consider the following analogy that my previous coworker shared with me. Think of the nervous system like the car's brake and accelerator pedals. Trauma jams the accelerator, so that's the sympathetic nervous system becoming activated, while the brakes, the parasympathetic nervous system via the vagus nerve, fail. EMDR helps repair the brakes by increasing heart rate variability, which signals the vagus nerve to calm the stress hormone cortisol. This restores balance, allowing the body to slow down, heal, and regulate itself better. So, even with all these promising physiological findings, there's still a major gap in how EMDR is studied and practiced. Currently, there are no standard EMDR protocols that are specifically designed to regulate immune function or even to measure immune biomarkers. Most of the research still focus almost entirely on psychological outcomes. And that's important. However, it still then overlooks the biological dimensions of trauma, such as inflammation, which we know plays a huge role in contributing to chronic illnesses. This, therefore, is a missed opportunity, especially for clients that are dealing with autoimmune issues or long term inflammatory symptoms, which may benefit from approaches that addresses both the mind and the body. To truly understand EMDR's healing potential, we need research that looks beyond symptoms and investigates how it might help regulate the immune system itself. Imagine a client with PTSD, autoimmune symptoms, and exhaustion. Now imagine offering them a therapy that addresses only their thoughts. To move the field forward, we need to start integrating immune biomarkers into EMDR outcome research. Clinicians also need support in recognizing physiological signs of dysregulation, things like chronic fatigue, frequent infections, or flares in autoimmune symptoms. And we can begin using tools like heart rate variability tracking during sessions to monitor nervous system regulation in real time. But this can't just be a clinical silo. Collaboration between trauma therapists, immunologists, and other health professionals will be key to building truly integrated care. We may also need to adapt our protocols. This could include longer preparation phases, more strategies to engage the vagus nerve, and better pacing for clients with heightened somatic sensitivity. These changes can help stabilize the nervous system and support immune recovery. Throughout this work, equity has to stay at the center, especially for clients from marginalized communities who are often disproportionately impacted by both trauma and chronic illness. Ultimately, this is about expanding EMDR's healing scope to truly treat the whole person, the mind, the body, and the community. Immune informed EMDR expands trauma therapy into a more holistic, embodied, and culturally responsive practice. It starts with the simple truth: Trauma affects the whole person, not just emotionally, but physiologically and socially. And healing should reflect that as well. This approach opens up new pathways, not just for symptom relief, but for real systemic restoration. We also have to name the reality that marginalized communities face higher rates of trauma, chronic illness, and systemic exclusion from both research and quality care. That means informed EMDR must be intentionally designed to address barriers to access, representation, and equitable outcomes. This is not just a clinical innovation. It's a justice imperative, a call to center equity and real community engagement in the future of trauma therapy. Immune informed EMDR offers a clear path forward, treating trauma at both a psychological and physiological level. With the insights from psychoneuroimmunology, we can provide more complete, integrated care. EMDR is more than just a mental health intervention. It's a systemic regulation therapy that works on the mind, body, and the immune system. Now is the time to develop new protocols and research that honors the whole person, the mind, the body, and the community. Immune informed EMDR isn't just possible, it's essential. In closing, this represents a transformative opportunity to bridge the mind body divide in trauma care. By embracing this integrated approach, we can enhance healing, promote health equity, and set new standards for trauma therapy worldwide. Together, let's lead the way towards immune informed holistic healing.